I never thought I'd become the kind of guy who hides in his own garage, holding his breath just to hear a few words. But last Friday, at exactly 10:37 p.m., I was coming back from a late shift when I stopped by the front door and froze. Through the crack, I heard my wife Emma's voice, low, almost a whisper, with that nervous little laugh she only does when she's hiding something. He has no idea. Tomorrow will be the perfect night. Then a pause. Yeah, I can't wait either. My heart slammed in my chest so hard I swear I could hear it in my ears. I stayed perfectly still, just listening. I could hear her pacing in the kitchen, the faint clink of her wine glass on the counter, the sound of her socked feet brushing against the tile. Don't worry, she said into the phone, her voice suddenly softer. He won't suspect a thing. I stepped back quietly, my mind spinning. Perfect night? For who? For us? For her and someone else? My first instinct was to storm in, demand to see her phone, demand an explanation. But something in my gut told me not to. Not yet. I've learned the hard way that when you confront someone who's lying, they'll twist the truth until you start doubting yourself. I'm Alex, 32, tech repair guy in a small LA suburb. Emma and I have been together since college, married for 6 years. We've had our share of arguments, over money, over my long hours, over her obsession with Instagram perfect everything, but I thought we were solid. Lately, though, I'd noticed little things, her locking her phone more often, changing her passcode, staying late at work a couple times a week, wearing perfume to go to the grocery store. I told myself I was just being paranoid. That's what love does to you. It makes you want to believe the best. But now, standing there in the dark entryway, my breath clouding in the cool night air, I knew something was off, and I needed to know the truth. I slipped into the garage and sat in my car, the cold leather pressing into my palms. I could still hear her faintly through the door, but now it was just laughter and a quick "see you tomorrow." A moment later, the kitchen light clicked off and her footsteps went upstairs. I stayed in the garage for 10 minutes, staring at the steering wheel. My brain was a storm. Images of her smiling at someone else, of me walking into some scene I couldn't unsee. I knew I had two options: confront her and risk her shutting down, or keep my mouth shut and gather proof. And as much as it made me sick, I chose the second. The rest of the night, I played it normal. Walked in, kissed her cheek, asked about her day. She said she'd just been catching up with a friend and was thinking about doing something fun tomorrow. I nodded, smiled, acted like I didn't feel like throwing up. When she fell asleep that night, her breathing slow and even beside me, I reached for her phone on the nightstand. Locked. Face ID. She stirred, and I quickly set it back down, heart pounding. I wasn't going to get answers that way, but I had an idea, a risky one. One that could blow up in my face if she found out. Still, if tomorrow night was supposed to be her perfect night, I needed to be ready to follow her, to see exactly who it was perfect for. The next morning, Emma was up before me. That was unusual. She's the kind of person who likes to sleep in on weekends, hair messy, blanket wrapped around her like a cocoon. But today, I heard the shower running at 7:15 a.m. When I came downstairs, she was already dressed. Jeans, white blouse, light makeup, and that floral perfume I hadn't smelled in months. "Morning," she said casually, pouring coffee into 2 mugs. "Morning," I replied, trying to sound normal. "You're up early." She smiled quickly. "Yeah, I've got a lot to do today. Just errands." Errands. That word was like a flashing neon sign in my head. I sat at the table, watching her move around the kitchen, phone in her back pocket. I could see the screen light up every so often, but she didn't check it while I was there. When she handed me my coffee, our fingers brushed, and I forced myself not to pull away. "So, what's the plan tonight?" I asked, pretending I was half distracted scrolling my phone. She froze for half a second. Most people wouldn't notice, but I did. "Oh, nothing special. I might go see a friend for a bit, maybe grab dinner." "Which friend?" I asked, keeping my tone light. She looked at me with that smile, the one that's all lips, no eyes. "Just Melissa." Melissa, her go-to cover name. I nodded, pretending I bought it. After breakfast, she grabbed her keys and kissed my cheek. "I'll be back later." As soon as the front door closed, I jumped into action. First, I went to my closet and pulled out the small GPS tracker I'd ordered months ago for work deliveries. It was the size of a matchbox, magnetic, and connected to an app on my phone. I had never imagined I'd use it for something like this. I also checked my old DSLR camera, battery full, memory card empty. If tonight was her perfect night, I wanted every detail documented. By noon, she came back home, carrying 2 shopping bags. I caught a glimpse of lace through one of them before she shoved it in the bedroom. New stuff? I asked casually. Just some sales, she said quickly, moving past me. She spent the afternoon doing her makeup, curling her hair, and changing outfits 3 times. Around 6:45 p.m., she finally settled on a navy blue dress that hugged her just right. I'd seen her wear that dress exactly twice, both times to weddings. When she was in the bathroom, I slipped into the garage and fixed the tracker under her car's rear bumper. My hands were shaking. Part of me still hoped I'd find out she was planning a surprise for me, that I'd feel guilty for doubting her. But deep down I knew. At 7:10 p.m., she grabbed her purse, checked herself in the mirror, and said, "Don't wait up. I might be late." I forced a smile. Have fun. The moment her taillights disappeared down the street, I grabbed my phone, opened the tracker app, and froze when I saw where she was heading. The moment Emma's taillights disappeared at the end of the street, I was already on my feet, grabbing my jacket and keys. My hands were shaking so badly, I almost dropped my phone while opening the tracker app. Her car's little blue that was moving steadily down Maple Avenue. I could feel my pulse in my temples. It was strange. The street outside was so quiet you could hear the wind through the oak trees. But inside my head, everything was noise. Every worst-case scenario I could imagine was screaming at me at once. I got into my car and pulled out slowly, headlights off until I was half a block away. I didn't want her to catch a glimpse of me in her rearview mirror. The evening air was cool, and the smell of fresh-cut grass mixed with faint smoke from someone's backyard grill. The kind of night that should feel peaceful. It didn't. It felt like standing on the edge of a cliff. The tracker showed her turning onto the freeway entrance heading west. I followed, hanging back 3 or 4 cars. It was Friday night. Traffic was heavy enough to keep me hidden, but light enough that if she took an unexpected exit, I'd have to act fast. I kept telling myself, maybe she's going to see Melissa. Maybe Melissa is throwing some surprise dinner, and I'm going to feel like the biggest jerk for doubting my wife. But then why lie about errands? Why wear that dress? Why the perfume she hadn't touched in months? 20 minutes into the drive, she took an exit I didn't recognize, a business district I almost never went to. Glass buildings, neon signs, rows of parked cars lined up under streetlights. My gut tightened. I stayed far back as she made a left into a dimly lit side street. The kind of place where small, expensive restaurants hid between art galleries and boutique wine bars. Her car slowed and pulled into a lot next to a place called Vincent's. I knew Vincent's. It was not a catch-up with a friend kind of restaurant. It was white tablecloth, candlelight, $1.40, a plate kind of place. The kind of place couples went for anniversaries or proposals. My fingers gripped the steering wheel so hard they hurt. She parked, turned off the engine, and for a second, just sat there. I held my breath. Then the driver's side door opened, and she stepped out, her heels clicking softly on the pavement. The navy dress shimmered under the streetlight, and her hair was curled perfectly. I expected to see her pull out her phone and call someone. She didn't. She just stood there, scanning the lot. I slid lower in my seat, praying she wouldn't look my way. And then, a black BMW pulled in. Sleek, shiny, with tinted windows. It parked 2 spaces away from her. The driver's door opened, and my stomach turned cold. It was Ryan. Ryan, my so-called best friend. We'd known each other since high school. Played basketball together, gone on double dates when we were younger, even helped each other move apartments. Ryan, who had been over at our house 2 weeks ago, drinking beer in my living room and telling me I was lucky to have Emma. He stepped out in a tailored suit, no tie, looking like he'd walked out of a magazine ad. Emma smiled in a way I hadn't seen in months. It wasn't the polite smile she gave strangers. It wasn't the friendly smile she gave to neighbors. It was the smile she used to give me when we were first dating. They hugged, not the quick, polite kind, but close, lingering, his hand on the small of her back. I could feel my pulse hammering against my throat. My first instinct was to get out of the car, walk right up to them, and end it right there. But I forced myself to stay put. If I confronted them now, I'd get excuses, denials, twists. I needed undeniable proof. I reached into the passenger seat, grabbed my DSLR, and snapped a few photos through the cracked window. Zoomed in, The way her fingers rested on his chest as they talked, the way he leaned in just a little too close. They walked inside together. I waited a few seconds, then got out, locking my car quietly. The night air felt colder now, sharp against my skin. From the outside, Vincent's looked like any other fine dining spot. Warm lights spilling through the windows, the soft hum of jazz playing inside. Through the glass, I could see them being led to a table in the corner. They sat facing each other, leaning in over the candle. I couldn't hear their conversation, but I could read enough from their body language. Her laughter, real, unguarded. His smile, smug, like he knew exactly what he was doing. I took more photos, each one making my chest feel tighter. 10 minutes passed. A waiter brought them a bottle of wine. She poured his glass first. They clinked glasses and held eye contact for a beat too long. I stepped back, blending into the shadows near a potted plant outside. My phone buzzed, the tracker app confirming her car was still there. I thought about texting her. Something like, "Hey, where are you?" just to see if she'd lie in real time. But I didn't. I wanted her to think I was at home, clueless. I watched for nearly an hour. They ate. They laughed. Once, she reached across the table and brushed something off his jacket sleeve. Another time, he touched her hand, and she didn't pull away. Finally, they stood, Ryan placing his hand at the small of her back again as they walked out. I ducked behind a column, my camera ready. They walked past me, not noticing. She smelled like her perfume and red wine. They stopped by her car, and that's when it happened. She looked up at him, smiled, and he leaned in, kissing her on the cheek, slow. Too slow. She didn't step back, didn't push him away. They spoke quietly for a moment. Then he walked to his BMW, and she got into her car. I watched as her headlights turned toward the freeway entrance. But Ryan's BMW didn't move. Instead, he pulled out his phone, smirking, typing something before driving in the opposite direction. I didn't know what made my stomach twist more, seeing them together, or realizing that whatever tonight was, it wasn't over. And I had no idea what the next step would be. I didn't follow her all the way home. The thought of tailing her back to our driveway, parking across the street, and then pretending everything was normal, it made my skin crawl. Instead, I drove to the 24-hour diner on the corner of Westfield and Pine. I needed time to think. I slid into a booth in the back, ordered black coffee, and set my camera on the table. My hands were still trembling when I started scrolling through the shots. There they were, Emma and Ryan, hugging, smiling, the candle between them glowing like it was a damn movie scene. The longer I looked, the less they felt like pictures and the more they felt like punches to the gut. The waitress, a woman in her 50s with tired eyes, set my coffee down. "You okay, honey?" she asked, glancing at the camera. I forced a small smile. "Yeah, just working." She didn't buy it, but she didn't push. When she left, I leaned back, staring at the screen. 6 years married. And here I was, sitting in a diner at midnight, watching my wife look at another man the way she used to look at me. I remembered the first time I introduced Emma to Ryan. It was at a barbecue in my old apartment building. She'd been shy, standing by me with her plastic cup of soda, and he'd made her laugh in under 2 minutes. I didn't think anything of it back then. Ryan made everyone laugh. But looking at these photos now, I realized that maybe that was the first seed. By 12:15 a.m., I saw her little blue dot on the tracker stop moving home. I waited another 30 minutes before driving back. The house was dark except for the faint glow from the upstairs bedroom. When I stepped inside, I could hear the shower running. I walked upstairs quietly. Her purse was on the dresser, half open. Her phone was sticking out. I knew it was wrong. I knew I was crossing a line. But after what I'd seen tonight, lines didn't matter anymore. I picked it up. Locked. I hesitated, then used her thumb while she was in the shower. The phone unlocked. My stomach twisted. I scrolled to messages. The most recent thread was with Melissa. I tapped it. There were only a few casual texts, nothing incriminating. But something felt off. The timestamps didn't match when I knew she'd been texting during dinner. That's when it hit me. She'd deleted messages. I checked her photos. There were gaps in the timeline for tonight. No dinner pics, no selfies. That alone was strange. Emma documented everything. I was about to put the phone back when a notification popped up at the top of the screen. It wasn't from Melissa. It was from a number not saved in her contacts. Asterisk had a great time tonight. Let's talk soon. Asterisk. No name. Just the message. And my blood went cold. I took a photo of the screen with my own phone, then quickly locked hers and set it back where I found it. The shower turned off. I slipped out into the hallway, pretending to be on my laptop when she came out in her robe. "Hey," she said, toweling her hair. "You're still up?" "Yeah, couldn't sleep," I said. She smiled faintly. "Big day tomorrow. Let's get some rest." We got into bed. She fell asleep fast. I didn't. I lay there staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of the night. The hug, the dinner, the kiss on the cheek, the deleted texts, the unknown number. By 3 a.m., I'd made up my mind. Tomorrow, I'd follow her again. And this time, I wouldn't just watch from the shadows. I'd get close enough to hear every word. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw them. Her in that navy dress, leaning in, smiling at him like the rest of the world didn't exist. By sunrise, I was already in the kitchen, sipping coffee that had gone cold in my hands. I didn't have a plan. Not really. But I knew I couldn't just sit back and let this keep happening. When Emma finally came downstairs around 9 a.m., she looked tired but still glowing. "Morning," she said, like nothing was wrong. I nodded, forcing a smile. "Morning." She made herself tea, humming softly. The same tune she always hummed when she was in a good mood. It made my stomach twist. Around 10:30, she mentioned she might go out for a bit later to see Melissa again. That was my cue. I told her I had a work call at 1 o'clock and might be gone for a while too. Inside, I was already mapping my route. At 12:45, she dressed in that same casual but perfect way. Jeans, boots, leather jacket, hair curled just enough. She grabbed her purse, kissed me on the cheek, and left. As soon as her car turned the corner, I was in mine. The tracker showed her heading toward the same side of town as last night. This time, she stopped at a small cafe I'd never noticed before, Willow and Maine, with rustic wooden tables outside and a chalkboard menu full of overpriced lattes. I parked 2 blocks away, camera in my bag, put up. From across the street, I saw her take a seat at an outdoor table. 5 minutes later, Ryan arrived. Not in a suit this time, but in a dark hoodie and baseball cap. They hugged quickly, sat close, and started talking. I moved slowly, keeping to the shade of a nearby building, close enough to hear fragments of their conversation when the traffic noise dipped. "Can't keep this up forever," she was saying, her voice low. Ryan leaned in. "I know, but we have to be careful. He's not stupid." My chest tightened. She looked down at her coffee, tracing the rim of the cup with her finger. "I hate lying to him." "Then don't," Ryan said, smirking. "Just tell him it's over." The words hit me like a punch. I stepped back, gripping the strap of my bag. My head was spinning, but my feet were moving before I even made a conscious choice. I crossed the street. They didn't see me until I was standing right beside the table. Emma's eyes went wide. Ryan froze mid-sip. "Over what?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. Emma's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Ryan leaned back slowly, putting his cup down. "Alex, this isn't. Save it." I cut him off, dropping my bag onto the empty chair. I pulled out my camera and set it on the table between them. "I have photos," I said. Emma's face flushed, her hands gripping the edge of the table. Ryan stayed still, his jaw tight. I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone, and laid it next to the camera. "And screenshots." For a moment, no one spoke. The only sounds were the clinking of cups from inside the cafe and the distant hum of a passing bus. Finally, Emma whispered, "Alex, I can explain." "Go ahead," I said. "Explain the dinner, the wine, the messages you deleted, the number that texted you last night." Her eyes filled with tears, but I didn't feel sympathy. Not anymore. Ryan cleared his throat. "Look, man." I turned to him sharply. "You don't get to talk to me." He glanced at Emma, then stood up slowly. "Maybe I should." "Sit down," I said. To my surprise, he did. Emma's hands were shaking now. It started a few months ago, after that fight we had about the trip. I was mad. I went to Ryan because I didn't know who else to talk to. "And then what?" I asked. Her voice cracked. "And then, I don't know. It just happened." Ryan leaned back in his chair, watching me like he was waiting for me to explode. But I didn't. I just nodded slowly, more to myself than to them. "You know what the worst part is?" I said quietly. "I gave you both my trust. You were the 2 people I thought would never do this to me." Emma wiped her eyes. "Alex, I stood, grabbing my camera and phone. "You made your choice," I said. "Now I'll make mine." Ryan spoke up, his tone sharper now. "You're overreacting." I looked at him, really looked at him and smiled coldly. Then you won't mind if I make these photos public. Or maybe just send them to your fiancé. His smirk vanished. Emma stood quickly. Alex, please. I stepped back from the table, my pulse steady now in a way it hadn't been for days. I'm going home, I said. Don't follow me. And I walked away, leaving them sitting there, silent. By the time I reached my car, my phone buzzed, a text from Emma. Asterisk, we need to talk. Please don't do anything yet. Asterisk. I stared at the screen, my reflection faint in the glass. I had enough proof to end our marriage right now. But part of me wanted to hear what she had to say, even if I already knew the truth. So here's my question to you. If you were me, would you let her explain, or would you end it on the spot?